Yeah. A pleasant good morning to everyone. Welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's guest menu looks like this. He's the Social Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We'll check in with Dr. Jason Cable, find out any information, updated information that's going on in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. He will be the first guest of today's show. Following Dr. Cable in hour number 2, our usual guest, Coach Van Pettaway, will join me, the Carlos Brown Show's basketball analyst. And then following Coach Van Pettaway, of course, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network with his version of the Southwestern Athletic Conference report. Today, 12:26, the time, I've got 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Of course, will be the last show of 2020. And just sitting down, kind of reflecting back on a very for some, we'll say a tough year. And it definitely has been with the pandemic going on. A lot of you have experienced the ups and downs of this world this year. But as we look forward to 2021, we're going to ask the Creator that the world gets better. And hopefully from a sports standpoint, it's going to be much better, and each and every one of you will be better in your lives. Also, it's a first day of Kwanzaa. Umoja means unity. So we appreciate everyone. Simply what's trending, just 2020 in itself. Normally, a lot of people like to reflect back and have their most memorable moments of the year. I just decided pretty much not to do that, because it's just been a tough year. But once again, hopefully 2021, it's going to be better. It can't get any worse. Correct? Join in on the conversation, the Carlos Brown Show at gmail.com, across all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, the franchise_show. Also, I will have the Carlos Brown Show on Facebook, the Messenger app. It's open if you want to get in the question or comment. Following last week's show, we had conversation going on for a good while. But with that being said, the guest, Dr. Jason Cable, Social Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Coach Van Pettaway, and Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Now, when Coach Pettaway comes on, I will just simply ask him, what would it mean to have a basketball program to become a mid-major in basketball? And what will it take? And I just want to get his perspective, and then you guys can weigh in. No one has all of the answers. I know I don't. But I just thought it would be an interesting conversation to revisit it once again, because kind of you reflect back now with conference basketball getting ready to start. You still have some teams that are winless in their non-conference schedule. You know, you have to deal with COVID-19 and playing, practicing, stopping, not playing games, not being able to practice. So we'll also ask Coach Pettaway, going into basically literally now, you got some games on the back end of 2020, but it'll be conference time. And where is the mindset, even in spite of what has happened so far in the basketball season? Where are those teams now, not only physically, but mentally. Also, we're going to talk about a little bit, I'm sure, throughout the show, about spring football. And last week, we had some discussion about recruiting classes, and that conversation is still going on. Did you hear about the letter presented to Coach Sanders from the president of Kentucky State? I'm sure that's going to come up today as well, pretty much challenging Jackson State to a football game. Last time they met, Kentucky State, boy, they ran the option to death on Jackson State, but that was then. This is now. Also, if I could, the New Orleans Saints, 4th straight NFC South Division champions, but I don't know. I still need convincing that this team can make it to the Super Bowl and win it. The Saints' window is very small, in my humble opinion, as far as this football team making a championship run. Then they're going to have to retool, reload, restructure, all of that. So, 2021, and also the NBA season has started with very little downtime. Very little downtime. But they're up and at 'em as well. Also, there was an article, I believe by Yahoo Sports, talking about, and I'll paraphrase this, you have so many athletes in the transfer portal, and they're looking for new universities, new football programs. And quite simply, it is so many in there, and spots are at a premium. Some players are going to be left out. I'll look into that article. It's very interesting as well. 7 minutes after 10 o'clock here on the day after Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa to everyone. Let me say good morning to Dr. Brother Michael Prince. And I think I will say hello, of course, but Dr. Prince, should I have some concerns for your Pittsburgh Steelers?
Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, sir. Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa, my brother. And perhaps you should, just as I should.
We got to have unity. No fighting today.
No fighting today, because we're in the spirit of Kwanzaa. And we're going to agree to agree to agree to agree. And if we disagree, we're still going to agree to disagree.
And remember, I'm right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Always.
No.
I told you we're going to get along great today, man. Great.
Same old, huh?
You know how it is. They say just a different day. But there are some concerns in the Steel City Nation, and warrant, greatly, so. And it's just my theory. We talked a little bit before the show started. The importance of tomorrow's game against the Colts. They've got to win this game because they need to win one of two games to clinch the North. And if we could find a way to win tomorrow, you treat the final game against the Colts as your bye week as far as your starters and working on some type of run game. And I know you said the great Bradshaw say, toss the run game to the side and just chunk it. And that sounds good in video game mode. But realistically, you're going to have somewhat of an effective run game. There was a better run game last week with Snell's rush for 84 yards. but you got to put some things together. And in all season, we got to address the line, and we got to get quality backs. I believe Connor was a great local story, but it's time to turn the page on Connor and go in. And this might sound crazy, but I've always thought, even at his older mileage in the NFL, that a back like an Adrian Peterson would be a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers style of run game that I've been accustomed to for years.
Well, as I listen to your explanation and your opinion, which we value, when I say we, that means all of us out there. But it's interesting, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about it's a game 6 in the NBA finals. You're the visiting team. You need to wrap it up. You don't need to go to a game 7. If it goes to a game 7, all bets are off. Now, the competitive nature in me would be that Cleveland game, and I understand what you're saying, and in theory, and the strategy is, I can see that. But that's why you've got to let logic, some cases, rule over emotion. Me, I want to go into Cleveland and prove it to them and just take them to the woodshed, you know. But I see what you're saying. Treat this game Sunday as a 7th game,
right?
In the NBA Finals. So I have several friends, best friend, and colleagues that like the Steelers. So I'm hoping for the best for Pittsburgh. And it's just ironic that both of our teams have kind of struggled toward the end of the season.
Well, you're trending upward, in my opinion. We're trending downward. So I wouldn't quite compare the two. You guys scored 52 points yesterday. We hadn't scored 52 points almost
I wanted
in 3 games combined.
Enough points on the field.
I understand. I'm still looking for some points as well.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe I'm just looking at it as a glass half full.
You're greedy. You're greedy.
Okay, thank you. That's one of the 7 sins, huh?
Yeah, greed.
But defensively, I'm looking at the Saints in that first half. I sent you a text message. They're playing like, I don't know if I can say the word, but
poo.
Yeah, poo. But you know, I just have high expectations for the Saints defensively, but then I had to stand back and say Minnesota's pretty good offensively. Above average is what you termed before the show. Above average. So with that being said, take that win, Alvin Kamara, 6 touchdowns, and this is a good stepping point.
Bro, 6 touchdowns. Toward, that hadn't happened in 91 years, man.
Yeah, well, hey, I just believe in his talent and his off-season conditioning, his balance. This guy is strong and from the lower half and the low center of gravity, but
strong like bull.
Interesting. I'll leave that to the experts to say he's an every down back and can run between the tackles. I just think he's. I look at him as versatile.
Oh, very much versatile, tough, and dependable.
And get him out in space.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well,
you know what I was thinking about, and maybe it's too late. I know now, but we need to get an open mic fantasy league for next football season. What do you think about that, man? Nothing heavy,
I think it'll be a lot of interest in it. I've only played fantasy like basketball, NBA.
Nah, that's too much work.
Well, and then I was winning the competition, and
so you got bored.
Some coworkers I don't know what kind of rule that they implemented, or if it was all there.
It was the
before,
franchise rule, man. It was the franchise
and I didn't look
rule.
and I didn't look at the fine print, but a couple of coworkers had no chance of winning it, so they traded all the good pieces off to other coworkers, and that pissed me off, and I just stopped playing. Somebody help me out there with the rules. Was that a legit way to do it?
Well, it all depends on how it's set up with the commissioner. But what you can get anywhere between 8, 10, 12, 16, owners. I think it'll be some fun, man. And I guess we need to do a poll, man, or run it up the flagpole and see if any of the listeners would be interested in doing something like that. There
you go. Put a poll out there. And,
okay.
And speaking of poll, and speaking of putting it out there, Jack, listening to the Cole Brown show says, "Hey, what's going on with Jackson State's AD and HBCU sports group beef? It's not healthy for HBCU sports."
I'm unaware of what's going on.
I happened to saw what happened, and
please bring me up to speed.
Well, I'll just kind of put it in a short story.
Okay.
Well, with Coach Sanders, and he had a couple of tweets, social media, Instagram. Proud of course, his recruiting class. Proud of the job that they've done so far in HBCU football. And of course, there's a letter by Dr. Brown, president of Kentucky State, that I've kind of briefly mentioned.
Right.
But Ken Richard of HBCUsports.com is the CEO. Kendrick Marshall is a writer. And basically, I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, was saying that you have so much sayings going on about Coach Sanders that it's not like some of these things haven't been done before.
Okay.
And they basically were kind of going back and forth. I can pull up,
and that created the beef
to be more exact. But then apparently he basically said something that Jackson State football didn't like, and then they blocked HBCU sports, and basically, and that's why I say you have to be careful, because you're talking a lot, and nobody's played a down of football yet. But it's good to toot your own horn, but how much so?
Well, it's okay to toot your horn, but other people have horns to toot as well. And if people are going to, weigh in on their opinions, facts, or emotions, whatever the case may be, that's part of what the all season is about. And you can't have a case of rabbit ears. And what I mean by rabbit ears, you can't be ultra sensitive to what everybody is saying and doing, especially if you're going to be in this atmosphere of athletics, coaching on any level. And you want people to talk when you do good, but at the moment people question or even have some challenges about how you're doing things, then people get sensitive. And you can't do that and be effective. You won't last in this business. If sometimes you just got to see and don't see, hear and don't hear, and let it play itself out. But, I honestly, and I wasn't even trying to be funny, you got so much that you try to maintain on your side of the track and in your lane. I didn't even know that there was beef going on.
Well, and I look at things are going on. Of course, we cover the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Southern University. I look at them very closely, and you have to. I think, me personally, I look more at what's going on at Southern and what they're doing, what they're not doing. My opinion, give the facts, than looking at other institutions, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a long season. If they're going to play it in the spring, The fall may be more promising, and then the competition, you'll get to analyze every game, and that's where you do it.
And even if you analyze the games, when you analyze
when you win, you know, you get a statistical story, you give your analysis. Then if you lose, a lot of times you get more reaction. That's just the way it is. If you look at your local evening news or even the national news, you'll hear a good human interest story toward the end, maybe. But what's going to pop off? What's going to jump off? Explosion in Nashville.
Yeah.
And so I just try to keep a balance of it. Jack, I don't get into. I haven't gotten into the middle of it, but I'm observing everything. But some things, I'm just not gonna. I have opinion on everything. We all do, but some things I just, hey.
Well, like you say, the
balance. Put it on the football field.
Yeah, the balance, and that's part of it. The sooner you can start playing, the sooner you can stop speculating, guesstimating, and casting shade, bouncing off a shade, whatever you want to put in that statement, in that slot. I think it's just something, to be quite honest with you, maybe people need to be less sensitive, because you can't stop people from talking. You can't stop people from having opinions. You can't stop people from posting, from tweeting. And if it's something that you agree to disagree with, internalize it and prove them wrong when the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. I mean, you agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But all eyes are focusing on Jackson State by most people, even in the media. I always say you point out good things when they happen. You point out bad things when they don't. When that happens, and it happens, and you try to just, be balanced.
Right. Well, I think too what happens.
Just like, and I'll bring a facetious point up. Just like when you talked about the Saints, they had other opportunities, and I wouldn't blame it on one bad call. Some people would probably agree with that. I would say 9% did.
You're going back 2 years, Carlos. Don't
go
back.
No. I'm using it as a reference point. I'm using it as a reference point.
Let it go, Joe.
Some will agree. Some will disagree. I just think some things close to home tend to have you more emotional. Because look at the show. The people who listen. I've been tough on Odoms.
Yes, you have.
You have not been tough on Odoms.
Yes, you have been tough on Odoms.
You have been tough on Dooley.
Yes, I have.
I haven't been tough on Dooley.
Because of the expectations we have for the home team.
Well, yeah. Now, expand that to the conference.
Right.
You have an expectation for the conference, correct?
Yes, sir.
To see them do better. And that's one of the things we're going to ask with Coach Pettaway. As a mid-major, I specifically asked about institutions, but then I'm sure the conversation is going to go into, as a conference, what can we do to get better? And is that an attainable goal once again? Because then scratch out the pandemic. Just scratch that out to a bad year. Maybe it'll be more than a bad year. Maybe it'll be a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But when that time is over with, can now you get back to developing a plan that'll push whoever it could be individually into basketball program and as a conference. And you can apply it to football. And we've talked about before, baseball, we believe, in our opinion.
Yes, sir.
It's further along that can get to, let's say, a mid-major conference, if I can use that term for baseball.
But you know what this is in comparison to, from my humble opinion? This is nothing but white-collar, black-on-black crime. That's what it is, in my humble opinion. And the reason I say that, we're beefing about potential signees and back and forth on whether you call a man this or that. And they said that when we all should be gathering up forces and be trying to kick the hell out of ESPN because they are raping us as a conference. When you compare the money that they give to these other conferences, but nobody sees that. Nobody wants to address that. So we'd rather do this chicken fighting amongst ourselves instead of attacking some real issues. That's just my 2 cents.
The discussion has started.
Well, yeah, I mean, who give two beans about who you recruit until they can A, qualify through compliance, B, stick around to graduate, and then C, win you some ball games. That is all opinions. That's all hype. That's all part of the off season. But the real tragedy, the real crime is that we're supposed to be happy by getting $1 million when they're throwing millions of dollars at these other conferences. And I'm not talking about the big conferences, but other conferences that are nowhere on our level of entertainment and interest throughout the rest of the country. And we're supposed to take it lying down. That's what we need to be raising Cain about.
Well, I will put you down because I said, what would you like to, and I didn't add this part, in 2021, hopefully, what would you like to see from a better standpoint? So I'll put you down for that.
Please Dr. do. Prince, put me down every year until we get out this contract in 2024, 2025, whichever the case it is.
Well, you got to start. You got to start somewhere,
right?
You got to start somewhere. Boy, I got people weighing in left and right.
They got mad at me.
Well, Dean says, how about that open letter to Sanders from Dr. M. Christopher Brown? You know, he was at Alcorn State, challenging JSU to a football game with Kentucky State. He ended the letter by saying he understands if the stakes are too high at this time. Shot fired.
Oh, shots fired. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that JSU is going to have to get accustomed to. Deion is accustomed to it. He's been doing this all his career. Deion knows how to stir the pot to get the adrenaline flowing in his direction, whether positive or negative. That's what he does. And JSU is going to have to take off their sensitive shirts and put on their big boy clothes, their big boy britches, whatever you want to call it, and learn how to let some of that stuff roll off, man. You're going to really have to learn how to let some of that stuff roll off.
Do like me. Just bring it. See, people know how I feel.
They know how I feel.
In the spirit of things, JSU is a HBCU, and I love them for that because they're brethren. But now, you know, from a competitive standpoint, if you've been listening to me for years, you know nothing fires me up about JSU. So all of that doesn't even make the blood boil. I kid about that, but because it's already there. That's always going to be a rivalry.
It's a built-in factor.
And one of my colleagues, Charles Bishop, me and him are, we can talk and kid each other about that rivalry, and we will continue to do that. All I'm saying again is I can't wait when the time is right and put it on the field. Now, with that being said, if JSU watch it, Brown. If JSU beats Southern in football, I'm gonna be mad, kicking the neighbor's cat. I'm choking the neighbor's dog. I'm getting mad. I'm shaving the eyebrows. I am going on a hunger strike. I'm doing all of that. I'm just disgusted when I look at, but I haven't had that feeling in 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hallelujah. I haven't had that feeling, but I know the time is going to come. You can't win it every year. But by the same token, you know how I feel. This is 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, let me add back. 2015, 2014, 2016. I had some joy on the reservation. So you know how I feel, and I'm telling the truth.
Yes, sir. Preach on, sir.
Against Alcorn State. You know, you've got to take it with a grain of salt. I converse with Alcorn State alum all the time. The smoke, get all of that. I go back and watch the championship game. I know, Carlos, you're crazy. Quit doing it. The results are going to be the same. All that to say, let's bring it down a little bit. Can you believe I said that? Bring it down a little bit.
I'm proud of you, man.
But that part is true about Jackson State. We lose. I'm going after the neighbor's cat. Unbelievable. I'm just in a bad mood. Is there a rivalry out there that gets you like that, where you're just not? Man, it's a rough week. To me, that's a true sense of a rivalry. I gotta take a time out. Got people with questions coming in, comments for Dr. Cable, and so we'll take the time out. When I come back, I'll visit with Dr. Cable, just to get an update on what's going on in the conference. I'm also going to ask him about, is there been some conversations. I had plans down in my notes, but conversation about if you're going to have some games that are stopped, in basketball, conference-wise, with makeup time. And then also the format for future basketball schedules. Has everything been decided about that? And then football, of course, spring football, still steady as it goes. Just some of those things. And if you want to do like Jack has posed a couple of questions for Dr. Cable. You can do that as well. ColesBrownShow@gmail.com. Coles Brown Show on Facebook, Messenger or Facebook. Take a time out. Be right back. You're listening to the Coles Brown Show.
You're listening to the Open Mic Broadcast Network located in Prairie View, Texas for news, sports, information, and inspiration 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Reach more potential customers through our sports radio package by dialing 832-213-8824.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
I know that as parents, we work hard to do everything right. We baby-proof our homes, put our kids in car seats, and learn what to do in an emergency. Yet most parents don't know that children could be poisoned by lead paint in their own homes. Lead poisoning causes permanent learning and behavior disorders, and the culprit is usually dust from peeling or chipping lead paint, which goes from the children's hands right into their mouths. Keep paint in good condition in your home, daycare, and other places where your children live and play. Ask your doctor to test your child for lead poisoning and get your home tested too. For more information on how to address lead paint problems safely, call 1-800-424-LEAD. This has been a public service announcement from the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a one-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Come on, hustle, 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 hustle. Get your head in the game. Come on.
Are you setting the right example for your kids?
You need to get some confidence.
Before your child's next game, ask yourself, how would you like it if they copied your behavior?
ad revenue has declined 15%.
Come on, you need to get some confidence.
Positive Coaching Alliance has valuable tips and tools to help our kids perform their best while keeping sports enjoyable for everyone. Positive Coaching Alliance, creating better athletes, better people.
The station designed with you in mind, the Open Mic Broadcast Network, Prairie View, Texas.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Coles Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. The last show of 2020. Look forward to 2021. And now I'm looking forward to just having a kind of conversation, getting information from the Social Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, none other than Dr. Jason Cable. Jason, good morning to you. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well, a little full from yesterday, so I'm okay.
Oh, Jason, full. Okay, I can only put it this way. I get excited just about people telling me what they were able to enjoy during the Christmas holiday, since I can't do that anymore for at least 6 months to a year and beyond. So I get pleasure out of you having a good holiday and being full. Thank you, sir. Thank you for letting me know that. Well, but on a serious note, glad to see that you're doing well, and your family, and happy holidays. Jason, the Southwestern Athletic Conference had a happy holidays as well. How is the conference doing?
We're doing well. I mean, we're gearing up for the spring semester. Obviously, football, soccer, and volleyball will kick off in February. We're nearing the end of our out-of-conference men's, women's basketball season. We have a couple of teams have a couple of games left prior to conference. At this point, I think we've done well in out of conference. On the women's side, they're excited. 80% of our programs have a out of conference Division I win, and that's a great accomplishment for the conference. And on the men's side, we boasted a number of out of conference wins this year as well. So looking forward to a competitive basketball season on both sides as we come back for the new year, and then obviously preparing for football and other sports as well.
Jason, and those are good accomplishments. How, as a conference, with COVID-19 going on, and everyone's putting an asterisk by everything, even in the non-conference, we're saying great wins in spite of COVID-19. Do you guys discuss that part, COVID-19, a lot, or it's more of what you just said? Just congratulations to the teams that were able to get non-conference victories.
Yes, I mean, we have to discuss it because it's in front of us. We want to make sure that, from a conference perspective, that we keep our team as safe as possible. The goal is to get in as many games as we can. Obviously, we have anticipated there may be stoppage in play, and we're prepared for that as well. But we don't have an asterisk by this year. I mean, the coaches, student athletes, institutions are prepared really more than they would normally prepare, right, given the circumstances. So I think this year, if an asterisk goes by this year, it should be considered more significant because of the challenges that the teams have had to endure.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned a little bit about stoppages and maybe conversation about that. And we're going to come back to it. So I want to get my points in, but then also, Jason, people have already, when they knew you were coming on, need to pass on some questions to you. So here's the first one. Question to Dr. Jason Cable. Considering the fact that part of the decision to move fall sports to the spring was financially based. How can each school support the spring with all the COVID testing needed, since every sports will be active at the same time?
Well, I think we have great leaders, and our presidents, our athletic directors, and senior women administrators, and so they have the devised plans, and so there are things that each institution has in place relative to testing, relative to staffing, relative to be able to sustain all sports in the spring, and so all these things were kind of flushed out prior to making a decision. And so it wasn't made in a vacuum. It was made with communication with member institutions, was broad-based. So institutions are prepared. It will be a different space, in terms of having that much activity, in our conference and on campus. But I think, institutions have done their due diligence as it relates to the financial commitment, as well as, other things that go along with being able to facilitate those activities on campus in the spring.
This is when Dr. Jason Cable, Social Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, my favorite conference, if I do say so myself. Jason, got another one here. Have they already created the fall football schedule? Decided on format of 1 permanent and rotations 2 permanent? None. Have they already created the fall football schedule? Decided on the format of 1 permanent and rotations 2 permanent, or none? Where do you stand with that, or is it still discussions about that?
Well, it's recently been approved. I don't want to let the cat out the bag.
Come on, please. Can when you give us drop us a kind of a clue, a hint? But but seriously, I understand you know that what you can and cannot say.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what we were able to do. We were able to retain our traditional rivalries. We know that there was an alignment in terms of Alcorn moving to the west and the entrance of Bethune-Cookman and FAMU. So we were able to maintain those traditional rivalries, even if it's cross division. One thing that was looked at in terms of developing a 10-year schedule was the travel involved. As we welcome new members, we still wanted to kind of keep our footprint close as it relates to travel. So we wanted to make sure that, teams did not have to travel. I'll just give an example from Texas to Florida every year, right? So those are the type of things that were considered in terms of developing the 10-year schedule. There are some minor things that we're still working through. It was approved with some caveats. And so some things that, we're still working through minor issues, but I think we're in the right direction. And I think the fans, I know the institutions, but I think the fans will enjoy, our schedule moving forward. I mean, it's packed with matchups each week, that you really can't take a week off in terms of watching your team or watching the conference as a whole.
So, with that being said, if we just use the numerical formation, 12 teams, 6 in each division. So, if, for example, if you're Prairie View, you're going to play a numerical format of, and you can just say yeah and nay or way off base or close, 5, 1, 2, 1 meaning the permanent cross-divisional opponent, and then rotating 2, or is it 5, 2, 1?
It just depends on the institution. Like I said, we try to maintain rivalries in terms of that permanent opponent, cross-divisional. But that is the philosophy, and I think that kind of encapsulates what we try to do over a 10-year period, and so 8-game schedule, obviously you're going to play 5, and then the other 3, 1 permanent and then 2 rotation on a rotational basis. So you are correct.
Wow. Jason, now the mind is make a note of that. Making my mind wonder, boy, you know what? There was always a joke about wow, certain institutions, they put you right out there. And so in my case, I think about Southern, just wow. But to your point, not a week off. Not a week off. Whew, competitive, to say the least. Can you feel the excitement? You can't wait till 2021 in the fall, but before the fall, there's the spring. So spring football, still a go?
Yeah, it's still a go. We're still preparing. We're hopeful that, we can get the season in, and we're doing everything we can from a conference to ensure that we have that opportunity. So we're excited about the season. I would not look past spring 2020 football season. I think it's going to be exciting. We've had a phenomenal signing class across the conference, 6 4-star athletes, 11 3-star athletes, and I think each of our institutions at least signed 1 3-star athlete. So when we talk about the jobs that the institutions have done in recruiting in a COVID environment, they haven't been able to leave campus and evaluate for quite some time, and they were still able to sign as what I consider one of the best classes for our conference, in recent years, as we look at the early signing period, the December signing period.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, we've had conversations in the past, the last few weeks, and when the NCAA introduced that early signing period, I would say that maybe some of the coaches, I put it that way, traditional coaches, they had a not too favorable opinion toward it. Then you had some that had to wait and see. Some liked it. From your experience being a former student athlete, there seems to be an advantage of getting it done early. That early, when they had that early signing period. What do you say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have some high school kids that may graduate early, and you're able to sign them and get them in. And then I think our institutions really take advantage of junior colleges and some 4-year transfers that you're able to lock in and get them to go through the spring season, prior to the fall. So I think it's helpful. I hadn't seen any impact since the early signing period was implemented in our office. I think it's been all pleasant.
But and I don't know if you could give an opinion or speak on this, but there was an article that I just read in Yahoo Sports. Basically was talking about so many student athletes going to be in the transfer portal, and then given institutions are giving some seniors a blanket year to play, and then basically the article goes on to say this is going to be a critical point because there are going to be some student athletes that, and I think they said it was almost over 700 in the portal as of the time of that article. They're going to only have so many slots that they can. There's only going to be so many slots open, and a lot of these student athletes are going to be, without a place, especially if they, decide, hey, I want to go somewhere else. Do you have a thought on that, or can you talk about that?
Yes, I mean, I think we're living in a time, specifically as we talk about NCAA athletics, where kids are transferring at a very high rate, and so I think everything that's going on now, given COVID, those numbers have increased, but I think it will work itself out. I know the NCAA, as relates to baseball, has increased financial aid limits and provided some exceptions. Haven't done that yet for football, but I do think that coaches will adjust, and if you can play, you're going to have a place to play, and so I know the numbers are high. They may not match up, but as we see spring 2020 come to an end, and we start preparing for 2021, I think you'll see rosters to start to fill up, and kids will find places to go. It may not be, their first choice, right? But they definitely will find places to play, and coaches will find student athletes to have talent and be able to put them on the field.
Yeah, and the close of that argument, the author said the student athletes and parents, if your kid has a commitment, go ahead and sign.
Yeah.
Go ahead and sign would be the best advice. I'm visiting with Dr. Jason Cable, Associate Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. You mentioned briefly in your earlier comments about, stoppage or maybe the possibility of stoppage in basketball. And we know we're hopeful that it won't be many, but has there been discussions about what if there's stoppage? Is there a time frame where those games could be made up?
There is, and that's one of the reasons why we kept the 18-game schedule, because we wanted to prepare for some stoppage. The key number is 13. We want to get opportunity for each of our member institutions to play 13 games and be eligible for the SWAC tournament. And so that gives us, just in conference play alone, that gives you 5 games. And so those 13 games don't have to be 13 conference games. They could be games that you played in the preseason against Division I opponents. And so we feel as if, giving our teams the opportunity to play 18 conference games and the games that they already played in the preseason should equal at least 13 games, and each of our institutions will be eligible to participate in the NCAA tournament if they're fortunate enough to win the SWAC tournament.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see, there's a plan, then you have a backup plan, a plan in place. If the plan doesn't go according to plan, and then there's another plan after that. But you get my drift. You can have all the planning in the world, but you hope that you don't ever have to use those contingency plans. So with that being said, the conference moving ahead with spring football, basketball conference season is about to start, and also baseball will be starting. Were there any major changes with baseball as far as, COVID related, or putting a contingency plan in place?
Yeah, we tried to be as less restrictive as possible with baseball and softball, given the fact that their season was cut short last year, more so than any other sport, right? When you talk about the spring sports and the impact of COVID. So we have not put anything in place that prohibits institutions in terms of scheduling contests or anything like that. We want our student athletes and coaches to be able to get a season in, and play as many games as possible, since, the majority of our teams played, I think, less than 15% of their season last year.
Interesting. And Jason, now, and you have to, I guess, be careful with, secondhand information, but there was, I had heard of a plan that one coach, we'll just say in the league, saying, well, maybe a conference only schedule, at the worst end, with COVID. But you're saying that no limitations on baseball and softball. So individual institutions that have a non-conference schedule, maybe revise, and then a conference schedule, that's still in the plan. You're still planning for that to go on.
Yeah, we still plan to go on, and then
make sure.
And so, I mean, we spoke of contingency plans a little bit earlier. And so one contingency plan with baseball and softball, if we had to, we could go to a conference only schedule. But this thing is so fluid and it moves so fast. I mean, we don't know where we will be as it relates to COVID in the next month. Honestly, the next 30 days really could change the trajectory. And so we didn't want to put any hard restrictions on baseball and softball, given the fact that they were impacted probably the most on any other sport last spring. And so we wanted to make sure that they kind of had the flexibility to play as many games as possible.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to, make sure I was clear on it. And with baseball, because I don't know why a number of 32 popped in my head as a conference schedule. I don't know, but for baseball is what I'm saying. But that's kind of why I phrase it conference only schedule. But it's good to get that cleared up. Finally, Jason, I'll give you the floor if you want to talk about any other news that maybe perhaps I missed or we missed discussing that you want to get out to the audience.
Well, I just want to say that it's an exciting time in the conference. I know that we are experiencing some challenging times, but just hang in there and hang in there with us as we look forward to an exciting spring semester. We want to make sure that we continue to engage our supporters, our fans. I know it's easy to get off track when there's no football going on in the fall. You kind of get disconnected. But I assure you that this spring semester is going to be exciting. It's going to be worth waiting for. So we just hope to pick up spirits as we move to the spring semester and get back to some form of normalcy as we look forward to our basketball and football seasons here in the next month or so. We're not that far away.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Prince. He was speaking into my ear. Virtual Media Day for SWAC football. I forgot about that. Thank you, Dr. Prince.
Yeah, so we do have our virtual media day for SWAC football. Excited about it. It's one of those things where you can kind of hear in the voices of the coaches, the competitive spirit. I think they're getting a little restless as well and ready to get back on the field of play. So I think this year, I think teams may have an additional chip on their shoulder. We look forward to the media day, and I think it's unique from the standpoint because we haven't played a game in quite some time, right? And so everybody's excited and chopping at the bits to get on the field.
That is an understatement, to say the least, but a statement that needed to be said. Usually when I wrap up these conversations, and hopefully I'm not being repetitive, but from a personal standpoint, is there a NFL team that you back? I don't know if I asked you that before.
Steelers fan.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, I'm gonna pray for you, Dr. Cable. I'm gonna pray for you because the Steelers and the Saints, they got some work to do. Oh, okay. I asked you that before. Okay, well that's interesting. I tell you, Steelers. Can somebody put in that maybe the Steelers is America's team? They've always been. Lots of Steelers fans. That'd be quiet.
That's well known. That's a well known fact.
Oh, well.
When you're America's team, you don't even have to tell anybody that you're America's team. You don't have to self-promote. It speaks for itself.
Well, with that being said, I hope, guys, that it's a black and gold Super Bowl. Get it? Saints and the Steelers. You see, commissioners and ADs, they're people too. They have likes and dislikes. And I just wanted to add that in. The Steeler Nation is represented throughout the HBCU landscape. How about that? Jason, don't listen to Dr. Prince. But anyway, have a continued happy holidays, happy New Year's to you, or Happy New Year. And appreciate the time as always. You and your family be blessed and stay safe.
Same here. You have a Happy New Year as well. And did want to mention John Starworth as we talk about the Steelers, Alabama A&M alum. So just want to put that plug in there as well, Hall of Fame. So
Oh, that was a hell of a receiver. Yeah, HBCU. And a quick story. Pittsburgh, man, I was a Minnesota Vikings fan as a little boy, a little franchise growing up. And, man, Pittsburgh, I was so confident in that game. And within minutes, the Super Bowl dreams were dashed. And to this day, Minnesota haunts me now that I'm a Saints fan, but we gave it to them yesterday. Albeit in an empty, almost empty Superdome. But, hey, 2021, toast to a better year. Thanks, Dr. Cable.
All right, thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Interesting. Visiting with Dr. Jason Cable, Associate Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Oh, yeah, listener says Dr. Cable's a good guy. The Steelers will be fine. Well, you know what? Am I picking a fight with Steelers fans? No. Somebody said, no, that's not true. No. I get a bad rep. Yeah, Mel Blount, Hall of Famer, Jaguar, Pittsburgh Steelers. Donnie Shell, yeah, black and gold. And by the way, Mr. Green passed away. Kevin Green, Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, man. Now, no, you know what? I get him confused with the other guy that would smile and his two front teeth were gone. Pittsburgh.
That was Jack Lambert, man.
Oh, let me tell you, tough Steelers. The name, the Steel City, tough. Play in the cold. Tough, rough. That's the right mascot name. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I would say so. See, I give credit where credit is due. And speaking of credit, people are still pouring in. Wow. Jack said basically with the beef that's going on, should the SWAC intervene in the mishap between JSU and HBCUsports.com. No, they can't do that.
No, they can't intervene in that. No, that's something that's going to have to be worked out internally. And people are going to have to, take the higher roads. Like I said, I didn't know what all was going on. I'll, research and find out what I can. But ultimately, we're going to have to live and let live, man. People are entitled to say and speak how they feel. And here's the thing. We in the media, we have a responsibility, right, wrong, or indifferent. Whatever you say, some are going to agree with, some will not agree with, some will be upset, some will be pleased. That's just life. But you can't let that interfere with the daily operations. If you don't like a person's opinion, okay, you don't have to like that person's opinion, but don't make it a personal war, because ultimately you end up being detrimental to one another. We need each other. Last I checked, if we don't tell your stories, and I'm saying we on the black media circuit, who else is telling your story? Yeah, you might get you a good buzz every 10 years or so, but for the most part, we're telling your story. And if you start trying to fight with those who are trying to carry you, then you're being detrimental to your own brand. And just because you don't like what a person has to say about in a column or in a show, there's no reason to go gather up your toys and sit in your corner and talk about, I ain't coming out unless you apologize. No. Everybody, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. And add on to that, I did a local show. Most people know, I'm not going to mention the name, but for years. And I was always branded as, by some within the Southern family, that, you always look at what's bad happening. You're negative, and you have to deal with that. But that's part of your responsibility. You give your opinion, you give your facts, as I've often stated. Over the years, have I had my feelings hurt when some people said some things about me, negativity? Yeah, but guess what? I grew up. In as far as doing radio. And so the feelings are not on the sleeves or on the shoulders as much. You learn to get tougher. And at the end of the day, one of the best comments that I got was, you know what, you know, I appreciate you because you're consistent. I don't agree with you all the time. I disagree, I agree, but you are consistent. And that was a big compliment to me. Yeah. Good. As far as being consistent. Good. And
I want to inject something here real quick. And it's mind-boggling. They'll say that you're negative. They'll say that I'm negative. But when the other folk come and cover you, it's only because it's something negative. But then you steady chasing them to come cover you when they don't care about you unless it's something negative happening. We cover you when it's negative, when it's positive, when it's mid-range because of the quote-unquote consistency. But you want to highlight and ostracize me because I happened to bring up something that was negative. It was something that needed to be noteworthy. But then when the other folk come and cover you and it's only negative, but you man, we got to get such and such over here to give us cover so we can expand our brand. I don't get that. I really don't. And somebody help me explain that to me. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, yeah, maybe somebody can explain it to you, Dr. Prince. But you can say personally, I've kind of been all over as far as, you know, critique. Now there's constructive criticism. My other half critiques me all the time, and you need that.
Well, we all need that. But if you're being constructive, that don't mean you're being negative.
No, and all I'm saying is at a certain point, I let it go because it will have your disposition at a place that you don't want to go. I also have another simple saying. Right now, it's sunshine in Baton Rouge in the 40s. Sunshine outside. That's what I tell you. That is a fact. Opinion is, I think it will warm up to in the 70s later today. That's my opinion because it may not get there. I don't tell you it's sunshine outside when it's partly cloudy. You get my drift?
I got you.
Everybody just...
But here's the thing, too.
Relief.
Everybody's talking about it behind the scene, but don't nobody want to talk about it publicly. What is that called?
I think it's a public thing now. But you go check it out.
No, I'm talking about people. They'll talk about you're negative, but they're talking about it behind the scene. But they won't. If you're talking about it behind the scene or publicly, aren't you still having the same conversation?
Well, I appreciate someone telling me, and I've had people to come up to me over the years and tell me face to face, not behind an email,
right,
not behind
a made up name, a made up social media name.
Yeah, and so that leads into social media. It's how you use it. I hear some people. I have good friends, best friends. They're not really into social media. I am, as far as personally, but more so for the sports side is what you make of it. And politics, religion, I pretty much don't get into long out discussions or conversations or debates on social media about that. It's mostly for information and fun. Like this morning, I put out some DJ Cassidy. Pass the mic. I love it. I can listen to it for hours. I'll put something out like that because it's 90s music. So I'm saying it's what you make of it. And, you can be passionate. You can be passionate about a topic. You can be passionate about an opinion. Hell, you've seen me be passionate about Southern football, Alcorn, SWAC football.
I want to see the conference do well. Too. You get real passionate about Odoms.
Yeah, well, maybe I can't be objective, but it's funny. That's my institution. That's my alma mater.
Right.
But sometimes I think you look at that more critically because you're in it. You live it. And I'd say the same thing about you with Coach Dooley. But the difference is, Coach Dooley, I had a professional relationship with him being at Southern. And it was just from a sports angle. Always courteous, gave me some interviews, spoke in public, kind of quiet guy. But now, you see him in a different light. He's a head football coach at Prairie View. So I can give my opinions, but the fact is, he's still the football coach at Prairie View. A&M. That's a fact. Now, where does opinion come in? My opinion is, if he doesn't get a run-up or a championship within 2 years, I think Prairie View A&M athletics, sports, the university will make a move. That is my opinion. It's not a fact yet. That's all. Well, we're well over time, and I was a break there. But if I'm making sense to anybody out there, let me know. Let me know. We got to take a break. Past due. Coach Pettaway is coming up. What would it mean to have an institution, a basketball program, is what I should say, become a mid-major in basketball? I'm going to ask him that. I think I know the answer. I have an opinion on it. But what is his opinion on that? And by the way, basketball conference play is about to start in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Dr. Prince, you tell Prairie View, be ready.
Always ready,
give them
boss.
that. You
Always
give them that
ready,
message
boss.
for me.
Always
all
ready.
Right.
Always. We ain't never scared. Talking about tell Prairie View, man, we stay on. We born ready.
Yeah, the question is, will Southern be ready?
Yeah, buddy. Here we come.
We'll be back,
baby.
folks.
Here we come.
After this time out.
Individuals who drive while sending or reading text messages are 23 more times likely to be involved in a car crash than other drivers. A crash typically happens within an average of 3 seconds after a driver is distracted. It can wait. For more information, go to itcanwait.com and take the pledge to never drive distracted. This message was brought to you by Marquand Goodman at the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
This is Sergeant Stephen Wirt, and this is Safety Talk. Do you know the top reasons why people cause crashes here in the state of Texas? Number one, failing to control speed. Over 140,000 individuals were the cause of a crash due to driving fast. Number two, driver inattention. Over 86,000 people here in Texas were the cause of a crash because they weren't actually paying attention to the roadway. Number three, changing lanes when unsafe. We had almost 42,000 Texans that did not adhere to changing lanes when it was safe on the roadway. Number four, failing to drive in a single lane. And finally, five, fail to yield the right-of-way at a turn. It's your responsibility to ensure once you're driving on the road that you're paying attention and sharing the road. Drive safely. This is Sergeant Stephen Water with DPS with Safety Talk.
it's always good to end a segment and come into another one with one of just the sweetest fight songs that ever was made. Can I say
that's
that?
a matter of opinion. That's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, that's a perfect example. That's a matter of opinion. It's not a fact. Oh, see, we're learning.
I'm so glad Coach came to neutralize this thing, man. Thank you so much, Coach.
Oh, Lord, what have I come into?
Coach, you know I love you so much, man, and I appreciate you. But I think you're the only one on the planet that can keep this fella in line, man. I really do. He been okay so far, but okay. Man, you got to have that short leash on him with the spikes on it, Coach. You can't let him get out of hand at all.
That's all right.
That fires me up listening to that song, and basketball season, as far as conference wise, getting ready to start. We'll talk to you about that, Coach Pettaway. There were some games. There's a schedule of games coming up at the back end of this year. But I want to start off with a question to you, and maybe get your comments on it. We've often talked about over the years of becoming a mid-major, and you can look at that twofold. In my notes, I just put down, what would it mean to have a basketball program in this conference become a mid-major? 2, as a conference, becoming a mid-major conference, if I can use that term. But simply, what will it take post-COVID? And I added that in my notes. Post-COVID, to look toward accomplishing that.
Well, it's going to come down to finance. You can't play on that level unless you have the financial backing to properly put your program in that situation. You know, you've got a couple of teams that, in my opinion, that are trying it and have tried it. Tennessee State, you know, when they decided to leave the independent status and join the Ohio Valley, that in itself has not worked out, in my opinion, athletically for them, because with the conference schedule, they've given up some of the big time rivalries that they used to have, and so consequently they don't get the same support that they've gotten over the years when they've had some of the big time matchups with some of the other HBCU schools. I just don't. Me personally, I wouldn't want to attempt to do that. I would prefer staying in an HBCU conference and playing more games on our level. Now, I'm one of the people that says that we need to play. I prefer playing mid-major schools than the Power 5 schools, because I think your budgets are closer to theirs, and you have a better chance of winning some of those contests. You know, a lot of people think that you have to play up to get ready for conference play. I'm one of the people that don't think you have to play up to get ready for conference play. You need a couple of games to sharpen your skills and get your rotation ready, your substitution rotations ready, and that kind of thing. But you play too many of those big time Power 5 games, and I feel that it demoralizes your kids and you don't get the best out of them. So that's an opinion. That's Van Pettaway's opinion. That's how I see it. But the biggest thing to make that jump, you got to have money. You got to have money to be able to compete and stay on that level.
And I understand that. Let me see if I can rephrase it then. Can you continue to be an HBCU? You will. And within the conference, could you do both? And as far as the scheduling, and you talked about the financial commitment, I definitely understand that. But could consistently your non-conference schedule look like you playing maybe a Southern Illinois, Austin P, and and a Stephen F. Austin, and you're still in the conference, but from a schedule standpoint, I guess, elevated to be quote unquote a mid-major.
Well, I'll give you a prime example of that right now.
Okay.
We're getting ready to kick Gonzaga. Gonzaga was always known as a mid-major. Well, for the last 10 years, they've proven that they're more than a mid-major.
Well, powerhouse.
When I say that, when I say that now, you know, I told you I used to vote mid-majors with the College Insider. You know, they have a mid-major poll. Gonzaga was one of the teams that we look at as a mid-major, but over the last 4 or 5 years, we had to rethink that thing because they started out as a mid-major. But Gonzaga is no one's mid-major. They are the number one team in the country now. They come from a mid-major conference. But those guys are rolling, man. That's a prime example of a school that started out as a mid-major and is now considered a powerhouse. And so now, yes, you can conceivably have a HBCU that had the finances to play up to mid-major level and move forward. But in football, it's different. They would have to move to mid-major to Power 5, and that's not going to happen. But a HBCU could have a team that can play a mid-major schedule and be successful. In my opinion, in football, I think over the years, Southern and Jackson State in the early years, and then a team like Tennessee State, they could have done that. They were HBCU schools, but you could not get the mid-majors to play them. Back in the day, they went on to play at the HBCU. And I think that they could have certainly won a lot of those games, and they could have played on that mid-major level because most of the athletes were still coming to the HBCU. But now that you got the kids leaving and going to other institutions, it will be a little more difficult. It's not impossible for HBCU to do it, but it's going to take money to get it accomplished. And that's what Gonzaga has done. They've put the money into that basketball program because I don't think they don't have football. That's their bell cow. That's their bell cow, that basketball program. So, and that's why Mark Few has not even sniffed at some of the other jobs that have come his way because he knows what he has there. He has a mid-major program with a Power 5 budget, and he's rolling. He's getting it done from Gonzaga.
I'm visiting with Coach Van Pettaway here on the Coles Brown Show. The Coles Brown Show's basketball analyst. With that being said, and listening to what you've just said, at one point in this conference, could you point to a couple of teams that look like they had the ingredients? And if there's none, you'll state that. But if I look at Texas Southern in basketball, if I look at Prairie View, what would be their potential?
The present day Texas Southern, I think, can get it done because of the way their budget is structured for basketball. I think they can get it done in basketball. I'm not familiar with Prairie View's situation in terms of their budget. And I do know when our commissioner was there, that they would have stood a better chance. I am not privy to the information right now of how that budget is scheduled, but in terms of players that coaches that have been in those two programs, they could get it done. You go back to Southern when Coach Jobe was there the first time. That program could have been a mid-major basketball program. And to be honest, if you really go back and look at the schedule, that's the way Coach Jobe tried to schedule. He played more mid-major schools than Power 5 schools. He did that. And one of the things that he told me, he wanted to try to build relationships with the schools in Louisiana. And if you go back and look at some of those schedules, he played a lot of Louisiana schools that would play him. Mm-hmm. And he played more mid-major programs than Power 5. So, see, that was his philosophy way back.
I would agree with that.
Recruited. Yep.
I would definitely.
So Carlos, it is possible for a team to do that, but you got to have your ducks in a row in order to pull it off on a consistent basis.
Consistent basis. And a financial commitment, because now my next step, we've talked about it in the past, even with you, last year, as a conference to elevate the game, your game, so it's not always a play-in game, although people will say some of that is biased. But I just think RPI-wise and not even other metrics, as a conference, you can do better. And I believe Dr. McClellan has kind of stated that also publicly. Better scheduling. Yeah, that's correct. What I'm saying.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah,
because that's the only way you're gonna get out of that play-in game. The overall rating of the RPI of the conference has elevated, and you do that by winning some of the games, but at the same time you play more like schools in order to win those games. You got a better chance playing more like schools. You don't have to play as many Power 5s because that's not going to help our schedule. I'm sorry, that's not going to help our RPI, rather.
Yeah. And just as a side note, I would be very inclined to go to a basketball game, like even if it's a doubleheader. Say like you got Stephen F. Austin playing Southern University, Texas Southern, the nightcap playing, a Southeastern, or UNO. Now that's just my opinion. That would be interesting. Some kind of way you could set up, a competition between the leagues. Albeit in Southland, I don't know if they're going to be around a whole much longer, but you get my drift.
Right. See, crossover games like that could only elevate our RPI. Because see, I can go back in the day now. When I was at Alabama A&M, we played a doubleheader with Southern and Tennessee State at the Pyramid in Memphis, and we had a great crowd. None of us, huh?
What decade was that time period?
That was in the early 2000s. Coach Joe, 90s. Late 90s or early 2000s. Coach Joe brought a very strong team up there to the Pyramid, and we both played a doubleheader, and we had a great crowd. And neither school is from Memphis.
But Memphis
it was a great attraction. Yeah, right. Great recruiting tool for us. Yep. So see, those kind of games. And then you remember, like I told you earlier, one of my dreams was to have the SWAC MEAC challenge crossover. That's what we got to look at. You look at that with some of these other like you said, the Southland, Ohio Valley. We look at crossovers for those games. That gives you strength of schedule. We're playing more schools with like budgets. And it's a win, to me, it's a win-win for both conferences, if you can pull that off.
Yeah, that's something to maybe look forward to. I know that having a HBCU basketball tournament that I forgot to mention about last week with one of the prominent actors, African-American actors, trying to put it together. But now, Coach, as we get ready, it's the end of the year. Some teams in the conference, they have some games to play out to end this year. What would be the mindset of teams now as they prepare? Now they're getting ready for conference play that opens up next weekend? the first part of January.
Okay, I think everybody except for Alabama State should have a pretty good picture about where they are, because you've had a few non-conference games on the men and women's side, and so you pretty much know what you got now. So now all you're doing during this time, if you don't have another game before conference play, you're fine-tuning. You're fine-tuning. You got your rotation down. You know what your team is doing in clutch situations. You've got situation basketball. These are the things that you're working on and trying to fine-tune at this particular time, because you're chomping at the bit. You know that conference play is what you've been setting the table for during this preseason. But at Alabama State, everything is still up in the air because they do not know what they have and against other competition. And that's going to be a hungry team because they've had this long period of time where it's just been them. Now when they host the first conference game, they got to get all the jitters out that first half in order to be able to compete. Because the teams that they're playing, I think for A&M and Alabama State, they should have Grambling and Jackson coming up. So they got to be ready. They got to be ready to play. But the other teams, on the men's side, I've seen some good action. On the women's side, I've seen some good action. So this is going to be a good conference season. I know that everybody has their predictions. On the men's side, they said Texas Southern is going, should be the team. It's going to be some dark horses out there, and I think it's going to be a good battle. I do believe they did get it right on the top three teams on the men's side. I'm not so sure on the top three on the women's side should be Texas Southern, Jackson, Texas Southern, and then that third one is going to be a toss-up between A&M's women and Prairie View. So I think we're going to be in for a great conference season. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and some conference schools have no wins going into the conference schedule, and is that kind of a troublesome thing, or wipe the slate clean? It's conference time now.
Well, you should wipe the slate clean, but some of those teams that don't have a win, they know they're in trouble too now. They already know that. I hate to say it, but we've got a couple teams on the men's side. They just flat out in trouble because they see that they just don't have it, and what's going to have to happen for them. They got to have that magical night where everything is going right for them to get some confidence. Because, you can lose a game and come out okay, but if you consistently get your tail blown out, it's tough on the psyche, and it's tough to try to bring them kids back. So that's why I'm saying that some of them are going to be in trouble.
I'm looking at the women's score from Monday, December 21st, and I see playing some tough competition. Arkansas over UAPB, and this is on the women's side, 86-52. Texas Tech, got a chance to see them, last year and a little bit this year, 79-60 over Southern. And then Stephen F. Austin, they must have a good, outstanding women and men's program, over Texas Southern, 100-61. And that was just on the women's side on December 21st, which was 5 days ago. I guess, Coach, we don't want to make excuses because you look at some of the pre-conference schedules, they play some juggernauts. But some of those games against, light competition, they've done well, but then sometimes they've struggled. That's the life of basketball, right?
Right, and then some of it has to do with scheduling and travel too now, because you take Stephen F. Austin, that brings back good times for me and also brings back bad times for me. Stephen F. Austin, we get him in our place. We win the game by 6 or 7, if I remember correctly, and one of their better players got hurt. Then we take that long trip to, I think it's called Natchitoches, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But man, good gracious of life. I by the time when I got there and I got to my room, I immediately dropped to my knees and I asked the Lord. I said, Lord, if you just get me through this, I'll make you one promise. I'll never come back here. That trip was the worst trip that I've ever taken as a head coach. And I bust there like a dummy, and I promised I would never do that again. I was hurting so bad, so I felt for my players. I felt for my players that I put them on a bus and put them through that agony. And we lost the game. I think we lost by like 18 or 19 or something like that. But that trip itself took it away from my kids. So I accepted that loss in the locker room. I told my kids, I said, fellas, you gave me what you had. This is on me. I said, this is why I tell you, before the season starts, if you don't get outplayed, I won't get outcoached. I said, but in this particular game, I let my ego overtake me. We never should have been in this situation. I should have flown you in here, and you probably win this game. So see, travel and other things come into play on some of our losses. And that loss was on Van Pettaway because that was not handled right. But I think when you look at a program like Texas Southern Women, I think they'll bounce back from that. They'll bounce back. But when you look on the men's side, when you look at a team like, when you look at Mississippi Valley, the way those kids have been mistreated on the court this season, that's going to be tough for them to come back from. Unless they got somebody sitting out that's going to come in there for a second semester, they're going to struggle all year. They're going to struggle all year until they run across that night where it's just their night. And then I saw that last year for them. I saw that in person when they came into Huntsville and beat Alabama A&M. They couldn't miss a shot. That's one of the best shooting nights of any team I saw last year. But that was their first conference win. Might have been the first win of the year for them. I think it was. So you're going to get that kind of thing during conference play. But as a coach at this time of the year, you cleaning the slate. It's 0-0. Let's go. Let's see who can come out on top in the next 18 games. And to me, that's what these coaches are looking for. But it's going for some of them, they start out in the fire. They start out in the heat. You look at this first weekend matchup. Southern has got to go to Texas. That's tough. That's tough. And you can't go out there now. You better split. If you go out there and lose both games, it's going to be rough.
Well, and last year that did happen. And some people were, threw their hands up. That was it. And then they were able to improve, and it got worse before it got better.
Correct.
But but
you don't want to put yourself in that situation, though.
Yeah. Well, the schedule remains the same. Southern Alcorn will be thrown into the fire early.
Yep.
They will be thrown into the fire early. And, someone's saying don't be whining. Nope. Nobody's whining. Just bring it. Just bring it. You come to the LD Park and get this set of buddy. and guess what? And if they lose, I'll be the first to be on there. You know what? But now if they win, all glory.
Yeah, it's put up or shut up time
now. No excuses. You better do what you have to do. To scratch, bite, claw, and get a win. But as Coach Pettaway say, wipe the slate clean.
Oh, yeah.
Wipe the slate clean. Well, Coach Pettaway, we appreciate the time as always. The troublemaker is trying to start trouble back there, but
all of a sudden now I'm the troublemaker. Now you've been talking all this off-season noise. Now you talking about, man, we gotta face Texas Southern Prairie View. No, man, what about that woulda, coulda, shoulda season that ended? Carry on.
You woulda, you better, you should, you better. I got a hotline straight to Coach Wood's private line.
And I got one to Coach Byron Smith. So what you talking about? What you talking about?
Well, at least one of them is a Louisiana man.
Hey, like the Isaac brother and R. Kelly showdown, baby. It's about to be a showdown. So go on.
Oh, yes.
Go on.
It's going to be good.
But this is a great time of the year. Great time of the year.
It is,
yes,
Coach.
Sir.
It is. Especially when them Panthers come out roaring.
Oh, the purple and gold glasses have appeared. They're bifocals.
They ain't never went nowhere, baby. I just know how to keep them in the pocket until it's time to pull them out.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, Coach Pettaway, to you and yours, happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Okay, thank you. And I look forward to talking to you guys again. And everybody stay safe and God bless.
Yes, sir. Be safe and God bless. That was Coach Van Pettaway here on the Carlos Brown Show. Going to take a quick time out. And next, I'm going to visit with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show.
I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to live. Did you know that 16.2 million adults in America at least had one depression episode in a year? 2.8% of the U.S. population are given manic depressive disorder in a given year. 10 to 15% of the U.S. women have a depressive episode within 3 months of them giving birth. 1 in 13 people worldwide will experience a psychotic episode before the age of 75. I can keep going on and on about how depression has affected many, but when will it actually be taken seriously? It is time to take action and help people overcome their depression by simply allowing talking about it to become the new normal. This message was brought to you by Healthline.com, KLSCA, and Open Mic Broadcasting Network.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a 1-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Welcome back to this final segment of today's show here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network, the Carlos Brown Show, heard every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time. I want to thank Coach Pettaway in the last segment for joining us in the first hour, Associate Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Dr. Jason Cable. Now, last but not least, a guy who celebrated a birthday on Christmas Day. Boy, you know what? You living on Egypt Street and Goodwill Boulevard. Birthday on Christmas, and then Christmas. You're a bad dude. Charles Edmond. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy holidays.
Wait a minute, Charles. don't come on and try to downplay it. It isn't. I mean, you get double, twofold in presence and all that good stuff, or you simply saying it's just another day?
Oh, it was. Hey, it was special when that, growing up as a kid, you get Merry Christmas and then you get Happy Birthday. You get gifts in both hands. So it definitely was fun during those early years. But as you got older, it got thinner, and so.
Yeah.
So it's just, hey, you're just happy to be alive to see another birthday and another Christmas. I just turned 53 yesterday, so just glad to see that.
Amen. Yeah, that's a good thing, living. Oh, but I saw that number 3 years ago. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to catch up with me, but you'll get to that number. You'll get to that number.
Some years, growing up, some years I was an okay kid, and then I remember one year I was so bad, the only thing, and my mother warned me, said, you're not going to get much because you were a bad kid. And I thought she was kidding. I looked up on Christmas Day, the only thing I got was an alarm clock. And she took a picture of that, me looking at that alarm clock, and that was the only thing I got. It looked like I saw a ghost. It was definitely a jaw-dropping moment for me.
You learned
to wake up. I don't think I've woken up yet. So
yeah. Well, speaking of waking up, it's the end of the year, and 2020 has been just a year horrific. That some will want to forget. Horrific. Yeah. One of many adjectives that you've heard about this year. But then you're looking forward to 2021. But as far as in the conference-wise, Charles, basketball, hey, New Year brings in conference play. And I tell you what, we were just talking about it during the break and before the break. Southern Alcorn, they're jumping into the fire as usual. The first playing date, Texas Southern and Prairie View.
Yep. Right off the bat, the top two teams. I mean, Prairie View's looking to win their third straight regular season title. They've lost a lot of pieces from that Prairie View team from last year, including their number one assistant, Landon Bussey, who's now, of course, the head coach at Alcorn. And Texas Southern is always a team that's lurking in the top tier. So you get it right off the bat. And so if you can, lay a foundation there, win a game at home, maybe win two if you can, and knock those teams down a peg right off the bat, then you've got Jackson and you got Grambling, and that's on the road. So the first four games for Alcorn and Southern are going to be really huge. I mean, Grambling's a team that's you can say they're one of the top five teams, Jackson State as well. So really, the first four games, you're talking about the top four teams in the conference. So if you can handle your own in those first four games, it lays a good foundation for the middle part of the season.
And to your point, if we can look back to last year, correct me if I'm wrong, but with Southern case, okay, they lost to Texas Southern and Prairie View in Texas, and yes, they're going to be in Louisiana this time, in Mississippi. And then they lost to an arch rival. You're 0-3. People are ready to tar and feather Coach Woods. And then they have that Monday night game, which we've talked about in the past. Monday nights are really it seems to be the tough game out of the two, but I mean, they're all tough. And then they defeat Jackson State. But after that four games, they're 1-3. It makes it difficult, but it's not a death sentence. But it makes you have to work that much harder.
Yeah, under normal circumstances it does, but I think we're in the here and the now with not as many games being played and not trying to make excuses, but there are excuses to be made because of what we're dealing with right now. I think it's going to be, I think it's a little more wide open. I mean, under a normal circumstance, TSU and Prairie View would be definitely the top two without a doubt, but they haven't played many games. Prairie View's had a pause in their program. Texas Southern's had some tough games, like, the big win against Wyoming. They played Oklahoma State, and they've had a quality non-conference schedule, but they haven't played nearly as many games. So you have an opportunity to catch these teams because I don't think any team in the country really is in any kind of rhythm in terms of college basketball. The number of games that they play, they're used to playing. So I do think you can catch these teams. Look at Kentucky. I mean, they've gotten off to their worst start in almost 80 years. They're 1-4, 1-5, whatever it is. I mean, so right now, no one is really doing much in college basketball other than Gonzaga. So you have an opportunity, if you're a mid-tier team or a team not expected to do much, to kind of sneak up on some teams because they haven't played, you haven't played. So I think it evens the playing field to me a little bit. Our men are playing Vanderbilt tomorrow, and then they're playing at Baylor on the 30th before they come home, the open conference play. So they'll get some games in on the back end of this, but, they've had their program paused, and, Southern's been fortunate to be able to play some games. Prairie View's program has paused. I think Alabama State hadn't played a game at all until January 2nd. So it's going to be interesting. I do think every team in the league is going to be knocked down a peg because they haven't played as many games. And I think that could make the league a little more wide open.
What do you think about Alabama A&M? Early on they were crowned, week one, I guess, best HBCU basketball team. And that's not to say those wins were insignificant because they're off to a good start and they had some great upsets. But are they a team to bear watching?
I think so because no one is watching. I mean, typically the teams that don't get the attention are the ones that are the hungriest. When you think of SWAC basketball right now, you don't think of Alabama A&M. They're a team that is going to give you their best shot, but they seem to come up short. But this year, beating Samford, I think they beat South Alabama recently. Playing kind of a regional schedule, a state heavy schedule, which is good. It helps build their confidence, and that's good as well in these COVID-19 times. Just getting a win and feeling good about yourself, I think, is huge, no matter who you play at this point, because odds are you're not playing many games. So yeah, I think Alabama A&M right now they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. They're a young team. They got a young, hungry head coach. And I think if they get off to a good start, then they could be tough come regular season, and especially in the meat of it. So I would put Alabama A&M right now, because of confidence. They're about as heavy as anyone in the league right now.
And on the women's side, you can put in the conversation Alabama A&M women. They improved last year and improved this year so far. Defending champions, JSU, TSU, Southern University, all in the conversation. JSU is now the hunted on the women's side. But, we talk about sometimes physical talent and coaching, but I think you should add the mental preparedness or the mental toughness. In lieu of what has been going on with COVID-19, you can add that into the mix as far as will help develop a team success.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely the case. I mean, you look at Jackson State. I mean, they were a team riding high going to the tournament last year. Of course, COVID shut down the SWAC tournament. They've had some pretty nice wins. They had some tough games against La Tech, and clearly they've got one of the top bigs in Alabama A&M the same way with Haynes. So those two programs, I think 1-2, you definitely can't count out Texas Southern. You definitely can't count out Grambling. I mean, Grambling's a team sneaky. No one's talking about Grambling Lady Tigers, but they could be sneaky good and they could get sneaky hot. Of course, we got a veteran coach, Nate Kilbert, who's coached in this conference. I saw our team the other day against UNO, and we should have beat UNO. We're up 5 with 2.5 minutes left and couldn't close the deal. UNO just beat South Alabama, quality win. So I think on the women's side, it could be a little more wide open, but clearly Jackson State, Alabama A&M, and then you can kind of throw the middle 3 or 4 teams in the middle of the bracket there. And they could easily be right there. So I think on the women's side, it's always more competitive. You always get a lot of good, intriguing storylines. Southern University can't count Coach Fletcher's they get hot.
They played a tough schedule.
They played a tough schedule, and I think every team, the ones that can get the games in, I think you can definitely get a good template in terms of how things might go in the conference.
Yeah. Well, we will see what happens. The last couple of years, it literally for teams 3, 4, and 5, it literally came down and beyond. It came down to like the last week of the season.
Yeah.
I think this season will play the same part on the men's side. Let's not forget about Grambling as well, and Alabama A&M. But you have your established favorites. But as Coach Pettaway stated, wipe the slate clean when conference starts. Everyone's 0-0. At least from a mental standpoint, and you'll see what happens as far as the basketball conference. Also on your agenda, you wanted to quickly talk about, of course, football practice will start pretty soon, January. And then also you did mention about the Deion Sanders comments as far as, we've heard many takes on it. We might as well hear yours.
Hey, I'm taking a totally different approach than most people. I know some talk show hosts are angry about the comments, what Deion has said and all the other stuff. One of my mentors, one of many, is the guy I work with on the road, Emmanuel Barnes. He's in the SWAC Hall of Fame, deservedly so. He's one of the first people I met when I got to Alcorn, and he told me something not too long ago that, if you think about it, is true. Even when it comes to anything, and you say something, if you don't know, you don't know. And I think you could put a period in that. The whole comments
simple
about
going to
bowl, huh?
That's simple but prophetic.
Simple but prophetic, absolutely. So the comments that Deion Sanders is making about the bowl game, and I know they got Ken Rashad all fired up, I get it. But again, if he knew, I don't think he would say it. It's something to stir the pot up. Yes, in a perfect world, in a nice world, we would love to have a FCS team and an FBS bowl game. That would be nice, but that's not likely to happen. Even though this year you got a number of FBS teams that are backing out and opting out of not playing in bowl games, and these bowls are just trying to get whatever teams they can in them. I get it, but this is a very unusual situation, and it's probably not likely to happen again. So I get it, but hey, Deion Sanders just started officially 3 weeks ago. So he's firing up the base. I get it, because we've been there. Alcorn has been there. 91, 92, 93, 94, we won 2 championships. And then we went through 4 coaches and didn't do a thing in terms of winning. It got so bad to where our fans were picketing out in front of Jack Spinks Marino Castle Stadium. So we were desperate and hungry to get back in the championship conversation. Then we hired Jay Hobson and things turned around. Jackson State football has not been where it needed to be in the last decade. You've gone through Bell, you've gone through Hughes, you've gone through a bunch of coaches there, and then you get a Deion. And yeah, he's firing people up. I get it. I've been there. But the question is, can he get it done on the field? We'll see. He signed, the signing class has been solid, a lot of commits. Hopefully he can get those kids on the field. We hope so. Some people don't believe so. We'll see. It's okay to talk about it. And it's fun. It angers some people because some people think it goes above and beyond. It's okay. We'll see in the next 2 months. The season starts 2 months from tomorrow. We will see exactly how it all is going to go. And I don't have a problem with it. Jacksonians want a championship. It's been too long, and it has been. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I have no issue with it. I know some people do. I don't. Let's let the games begin, and it's all going to start when teams hit the practice field the next week, 10 days.
On the field. That's it. And I went on this being the smarty pants in hour number 1. You know how I feel just from a personal standpoint. When you play in Jackson State Southern, it gets no better, right?
Absolutely.
And if it happens, And you would agree I've been tough on Coach Odoms. You know, second place is not second place if you keep getting second place, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
But I will have to admit the day will come. If Southern loses to Jackson State, I'm not going to be a happy camper. I'm going after pets. I'm going after everybody. And that's just not cool, Charles. So, hey, everybody, I say chill out. You said it best, Charles. We'll put it on the field. That's where all this is going to be settled. And also another crack at Alcorn, too. You think I was you know what?
That I do know.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Charles, we appreciate it. We'll talk again real soon.
All right, you guys be safe. Happy holidays.
Same to you. As we close out today's show, the last of 2020, I want to thank Dr. Jason Cable, Coach Van Pettaway, and Charles Etman. Emoja means unity in Kwanzaa. So hopefully we can have some unity off the field, but on the field, let's get it on. Let's get it on. Remember, you can make a donation to the show. We appreciate all donations on Cash App, the Carlos Brown Show. Willard Sims, again, last week, a generous donation. Appreciate it. 2021, bigger and better. Hope to add some more features to the show. I also want to thank Dr. Michael, Brother Prince, who you can never deny is purple and gold. Purple and gold. Happy holidays to you, my brother.
Right back at you, big guy. Right back at you.
All righty. Until next time, 2021, for the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Be safe, be blessed, and as always, peace and God bless.